Hi, today I'm going to be talking to you about China's interpersonal communication. China has not always what it's been.
September 1931, Manchuria. The Japanese army, without the approval of its own government in Tokyo, pours into the northern Chinese province after the Japanese-owned railroad is sabotaged near the city of Mukden. Chinese resistance is light and disorganized. By early 1932, the Japanese are firmly in control of the province. The lack of Chinese resistance is in large part due to the bitter civil war engulfing the country. Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist.
China is a country who once led the entire world's civilization in arts and science. However, during the 19th and 20th century, this country lost most of its assets due to major famine, job losses, civil unrest, wars internally and externally. Here's a little clip to show how Japan invaded China back in the 1930s.
Get fractured to do anything about it. Chiang continues to direct the majority of his forces against the communists, despite continued border skirmishes with the Japanese until 7 July 1937, when Rising Sun forces, claiming they had been assaulted, launch an all-out offensive on Peking. A vicious battle ensues, but by the 28th, the enemy is in control of the ancient Chinese capital.
Today, I will not teach you how to speak the language of China. However, I will teach you how to communicate and the culture that they use in interpersonal relationships. Let's take a look at the population. With China's population exceeding the United States by over 1 billion people, it is important to pay attention and learn how this new America communicates and handles authority throughout life. Let's take a look at the power distance. Despite being ranked number 1 in population, this massive country is in the top 10 in power distance. Chinese individuals tend to respect and rarely confront authorities and elders. Ordinary citizens usually have no power. However, this ordinary citizen can have a lot of authority when it comes to interpersonal relationships at home. Traditional families are led by the father, and he usually is in complete control of the family, arranges marriages for his daughter. However, the modern families allow their children to pick their own spouses. Unfortunately, I can't say this about the communication in China. Over the last decade, when the internet has increased in its population by over 380 million people, the Chinese embassy demonstrated its power once again by creating a firewall, the strongest firewall known to mankind. How ironic they call it the Great Firewall of China, which censors what an adult can say, search, or do. Major websites such as Flickr, YouTube, and Wikipedia are all blocked, along with adult websites, discussion boards, blog sites that criticize religion and politics. Here's a video to show a little bit more.
China, that the internet blockade is getting even stronger than ever before. More websites and chat rooms are getting blocked. Here's the full story.
Mr. Li is an internet user in mainland China. He tells NTD that the Chinese Communist Party has closed down a lot of websites recently. Among them, the QQ Tengshen software company, which hosts online chat rooms and forums. Mr. Yu is another internet user in mainland China. He says online postings on his personal website were taken down without reason.
I just shared my ideas or expressed my own feelings. I didn't break the law.
Who believes in loyalty, whether it's with the family, work, school, or the country. They maintain a sense of harmony, and that means they act the same towards all strangers. They never do anything to embarrass someone else in public. Chinese are also willing to hide their own feelings for the good of the group in structured meetings, usually by silence. If someone disagrees with another person, rather than disagree publicly, they would rather remain silent. China ranks number 10 in countries when it comes to masculinity, meaning they place a lot of emphasis on status. Therefore, train as adolescents to become assertive, take school seriously so they can become very successful. But they don't talk bad about a person in power in public. They wait till they are in the privacy of their own homes before they do something like that.
Leaders group will never be seen.
Although China has a lot of people, it is different than the America in different ways. Here are some differences that you may see while you're in China. Burping is normal there. It is ordinary for both male and female to spit. To eat and talk is normal also. Chinese have less personal space, so if you're really close to somebody, it is normal. Ordinary, you might step back, but they just might step a little bit closer because everybody is in a rush. There is also no grace period for being late in China. Remember what you learned about China's communication, and you will be safe when you go there. You will not have any flaws and mess up when you're communicating. Although there are a lot of people there, they do communicate differently. If you are in China and you're pushed in line, don't feel bad because Chinese people aren't used to standing in lines. They're always in such a rush. If Chinese people also don't like when you point with your index finger. You should point with an open palm to point. To call someone in public, you snap your fingers and whistle. However, in America, this is disrespect. One thing you would notice different, if you're walking down the streets in New York City and you bump into somebody, it may be an altercation. However, if you're walking down the streets in China, they would just keep going about their business as if nothing happens because it's in their norms to respect others. Here are some greeting etiquettes that you may need to know while in China. If you do not have a name, then you have no card, or vice versa, no card, no name. When taking a given card, you must use 2 hands. It's disrespectful to take things without 2 hands. Act for interested and for like 3 to 4 seconds. Bring gifts and call by title, not marriage name or status. Here are some business etiquettes that you may need to know while you're in China.
In a highly bureaucratic state like China, the use of personal contacts is the only way to get things done. People rely on a relationship's value to honor their transaction. It's for this reason that relationships are not easily made. The wrong relationship can mean serious trouble and leave little room for escape. You know, Westerners are often known to be fast-paced, contract-driven, and unwilling to slow down. Sound like you? Doing business in China means you need to interact with them in a way that makes sense to them. That involves relationship building, networking, and not forcing negotiations immediately. It can be frustrating, I know, when it seems like it's going both fast and slow at the same time, but you need to give yourself and your potential deal time to play out in the Chinese way. Whipping on a contract early in the negotiation process is seen as an indicator of bad faith. Don't do it. It's considered inappropriate, and your draft contract will be seen as irrelevant. To the Chinese, it carries a sense of commitment, and they can just sign the document to humor you and their Western guests. You see, business clauses are seen as a useful agenda, but they carry no obligations. It's the trusting relationships that are committal, not contracts. A contract can actually be seen as a step that shows both sides are getting closer to developing a relationship. So don't be surprised if after a signed contract, they ask you for more concessions. But remember, you can do the same. Now, when you're negotiating with the Chinese, remember that their views on life are different from ours. Westerners, we think in a linear way, choice A or choice B. Clear alternatives that are mutually exclusive, meaning you have to choose one or the other. Now, the Chinese think of life as a balance of opposites. Their approach is to pick and choose from both. It might seem evasive, illogical, or even devious to us, but it's not to them. Another big element to understanding Chinese business culture is to respect face. Having face means a high status in the eyes of your peers and is a mark of personal dignity. It can be lost, given, taken away, or even earned. It can be given by praising someone for good work in front of their colleagues, but be careful, be sparingly. Your praises will lose sincerity if they're doled out too easily. The easiest way for someone to lose face is to insult or criticize them in front of others. A huge no-no is to make fun of someone. Westerners can do that in a good-natured way, it's okay, but it doesn't translate to Chinese culture. Another way to lose face is to not give someone the respect that is due. Treating a high-up person as a subordinate is a deal killer. If you want to do business with the Chinese, then you have to understand that they're more of a group-oriented culture. You are organized. They're organized in a hierarchical way. The Chinese do not take individual responsibility, nor give their opinion before their peers, in case it could cause them to lose face with a valued ally.
China's business etiquette. Approach deals with a safe face mindset. Sitting at tables according to rate. Conversation type meetings, no straight talk. Business relationships develop social relationships. The more you talk as in the social environment, gains more interest in your business. Never interrupt older adults. Always refer to them as their status name, doctor, director, manager. Do not talk business while eating. Remember that. China seemed to place a lot of emphasis on symbolism and nonverbal cues such as nodding heads and bowing. Here is a little video to show. As you notice in the video, he is shaking with both hands and nodding. These are some great nonverbal cues that are very polite. However, there are some contrary to this. Nonverbal cues that you should know in the culture that individuals do not like to be touched by strangers. Never use one finger to tell somebody come here. Be discreet when dialing the phone, point with an open hand, and handle things with both hands is polite. Do not stare people in their eyes or wink at them. It is considered rude. Same-sex friends are usually very friendly and not to be confused with homosexuals. They smile when embarrassed or having a difficult time and use eyes to express their real emotions. You will see how they smile when they're embarrassed or use their real emotions are seen by their eyes in this next video.
Johnson?
Hi.
Hi, Section Chief Yon will be pleased to know you're early. I'm Li Wen, his assistant.
It's nice to meet you. I'm Jack Johnson, and this is my boss, Chantel Edwards.
Oh, your boss?
The concept of mianzi is a very important part of the Chinese culture. Similar to the concept of respect, mianzi revolves around maintaining a good image or face. If a person makes a mistake or is humiliated, they experience a loss of face.
Mrs. Edwards, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to assume.
It's no problem, I understand.
Individuals are taught since youngsters to keep a good image. Therefore, they save face and try to make each situation not as big as the real thing. Here's an exchange student on compliments.
When you're complimenting people, in China, you're expected when you receive a compliment, you're expected to kind of brush it off and not seem too cocky. So there's like a phrase in Chinese called "nali nali," and that just means like if someone says, "Oh, you're very pretty," they'll say "nali nali," meaning like, "Oh no, it's nothing." Whereas in the United States, I think it's acceptable to be like.
In conclusion, I would like to show you one last video that shows 3 main things that you should do and know about conducting relationships verbally, non-verbally, and physically in China.
Observe. That means what to do and what not to do. The first is greeting. Now, when you're greeting a person, it's very important that you have a name card, as we mentioned. It's very important to present your name card with 2 hands, and even more important to receive your counterpart's name card with 2 hands. Now, when you receive the business card, which I keep calling it a name card because that's what they call it in Chinese, Ming Pian, which means name card. But when you receive it, it's very important that you don't just ignore it and stick it in your pocket, but that you take it and act as if you're really interested in it, like it's the most exciting piece of paper that you've ever seen in your life, just for maybe 3 or 4 seconds before you put it away. That's an important part of respect. Now, a second key point is when you do visit somebody, that you bring a gift. And again, it doesn't have to be an expensive gift, but something that represents that you put some thought in it, maybe something special from the area of the world that you're from, that you give to this person to demonstrate respect. And number 3 is really about this respect. If you visit a Chinese person, again, don't call him by his given name, and call him not by Mr. usually either, but by his title. So if his name is President Zhou or President Zhang, Zhou is a Chinese surname, I'm not just saying Zhou in English. But if you're calling him President Liu or whatever it is, you call him by his title and his surname. This is very, very important. Now, I've emphasized these 3 points because if you forget everything else you learned through this video series, this will help you to avoid making a real donkey out of yourself. And